What defines a heart for youth? Find out today on a Heart for Youth podcast.
This episode is sponsored by Anchor. Anchor is your one-stop shop for podcasting. It's 100% free, and you can create a podcast directly from your phone or computer. Anchor distributes your podcast to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many more. Simply download the Anchor app on your iPhone or Android, or go to anchor.fm to get started.
This week I'm on the phone with Jason Hepler. Jason, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, my name's Jason Hepler. I'm a youth minister at Mercy Temple. It's a Pentecostal church in Pisgah, Alabama, and I'm also the chief of police of the Hollywood, Alabama Police Department. I have a doctorate degree in ministry and a master's degree in psychology, and then a bachelor's in criminal justice. Prior to law enforcement, I served in the United States Marine Corps, and also in law enforcement, I'm a canine handler. And my canine's partner, his name is Athos, and we make some Christian videos that we post online, and it's really helped us gain, a pretty large following. I'm really surprised at the way that people have reacted to the videos that we post.
Yeah, actually, I found you on TikTok, just out of the blue. So
Yeah, and I started TikTok just to kind of monitor my daughter. She's 11, and she likes to get on there and make videos. And I was like, man, this is the dumbest thing. And then I started just playing with it. And I was like, wow, this is the greatest thing. So it went from being something I thought I was just going to totally despise to like, hey, I can use this as a tool to help spread God's message and interact with people on a completely different level.
Absolutely. So my first question for you is, how did you end up in youth ministry, and how long have you been in youth ministry?
So I've been doing youth ministry for about 2.5 years. And it's really hard to say. I've been in church since I was about 5 years old, and I've been really active in the churches. And in law enforcement, I've always done these different classes at school. So I'd go around to the schools, and I'd interact with the kids, and I started an anti-bullying campaign, and I've done these events and charities where we take less fortunate kids shopping for Christmas and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, this is just all really such a great thing that I just felt really called to go deeper with that and to help kids spiritually versus just physically and emotionally and things like that. I was like, the way I interact with these kids, I can do so much more for them if I start ministering to them and trying to lead them to Christ rather than just fixing their possession issues or their life issues. Let's get them to where that they know that there's a God they can depend on. And it just really kind of started from there.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, I know. I'm sure in your law enforcement career, you really can't necessarily share, the Word of God, but you can be God's light. You can share His love in other ways by, being that positive support.
Right. That's right.
At what point did you know that youth ministry was a passion of yours? And I guess you kind of touched this on a bit, but do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, when I first got into it, I didn't really know. I guess it's one of those things people think, they have their ideas about what they want to do. Sometimes they feel like, that's something that I want to get into. But I really didn't know until I actually got into it that it was something that I enjoyed. Just to be honest, I was actually pretty scared about doing it because I can minister to adults pretty well, but ministering to kids is different because you're taking somebody that doesn't know. A lot of times you're dealing with people that don't really know just a whole lot about the Bible or about God, or anything like that. So you're actually setting that foundation and you're helping them form that belief. And it's different than dealing with somebody that's an adult that's already has those beliefs. So you're having to do a lot of fundamental teaching. And what's scary about it is if maybe you go and you're not I guess really what bothered me in my mind is, what if I'm not enough? What if I'm the wrong type of example and this hurts them later in life more than it helps them? But I overcame all that. The enemy tries to attack your mind with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But until you get in there and you start dealing with it, you never really know.
Right. What was your hardest moment in youth ministry so far, and how did you overcome it?
I think the hardest moment would be when you start to see a decline. I guess firstly when kids first start getting involved, they can get so on fire, but when life happens and situations happen, maybe attendance starts to drop for a little while, and you start to feel like maybe what you're doing is not working. So that plays an emotional roller coaster on you, because you're worried whether or not you're getting through to them, whether you're reaching them, or you see your kids struggling, and it's just that makes it really difficult to try to find a solution. But how you overcome it is just you got to stay the course. If something you're doing is not working, pray until you can find a solution for the problem. Research and try to find what's working for other people, and just let God lead you, and make sure that you're staying obedient to Him instead of getting your own ideas and opinions stuck in the way that cause separation or cause them to not want to come.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Was there a moment in your youth ministry career so far that you felt like what you were doing was working, or that you were making a difference in somebody's life or a group's life?
So yeah, we always try to. Right now is probably the hardest time that we've ever had to go through in youth ministry, just because we're not able to gather together, and we're looking for different ways to keep our kids connected. But the things that I've seen that really work is when we're regularly meeting together, not just for Sunday school, not just for Sunday morning or Sunday night services, not just for Wednesday night, but when we plan activities and we make them feel like they're just as big a part of the church as anybody else, that just because they're younger doesn't mean that they're any less valuable to the church. And a lot of people will say that the youth are the future generation of the church. I don't see that. They're the church right now. Of course, we have to mold them and shape them so that they can have those leadership roles, but they're just as much a part of the church now as anybody else is. So we just got to make sure that they get the best possible teaching and the best examples that we can give. So what we've seen is when we do activities and we get them together and we get them involved and make them feel like they're important and know that they're special, we see a lot of progress from that. So we'll do things like, there's a retro arcade that's, about 30 minutes from here, and you can go, and it's just a few dollars, and it's just got the old, coin-in arcade games. We'll go do an arcade night. We'll get everybody together, then we'll go do, a pizza after that, and just do some devotional stuff while we're eating the pizza. Just getting them involved and helping them stay interacting with each other, because society is different than it was when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So they have a whole lot of other things that draw their attention and pull them away. So we got to remind them that it's important for us to all get together and do things together.
Absolutely. I think, fellowship is very important, even outside of the church.
That's right.
I think there are times that, it's those moments that they see that your character outside of church, and that you're still being that good example, and that's what makes an impact in their life.
Right.
Sometimes more than in youth group,
That's exactly right. So when you take them out and you show them how you interact and how you who you are outside of the church, instead of just. I'm actually doing a Bible study tomorrow night on the I think it's Matthew 25 with the 10 virgins with the oil, in their lamps. We can all dress up our best for Sunday, and we can all go be a certain person in the church, but who we are when we interact with people outside of that environment speaks more about who we are than the way we behave ourselves inside the church.
Absolutely. So what was what has been your greatest memory to date in youth ministry?
So I think my probably the greatest memory that I had, I mean, there's so many. We just had this service one night, I think it was about a year and a half ago, that you could just, there's so many of the youth that went to the Lord, they went to the altar, they accepted salvation. You could just see that an impact was happening. I think we ended up baptizing 16 people in one day. And it was just amazing because you could see that there was lives being changed. And when you go out and you sow seeds, you don't automatically always see the plant sprout. You don't see it bearing fruit right away. But when you actually get to be there for the harvest and you get to see the difference that's been made, and you see these lives changing daily, and they're getting better and they're getting stronger, and yeah, sure, they still have struggles, but you're actually seeing that forward momentum. Those are the greatest moments, when you see those things happen. When you see them taking hold and you see the progress. So it'd be hard to limit it to just one thing, but I think back a lot of times to that service, when so many of them found their way to where they were trying to get to. That's probably the greatest memory for me.
That's awesome. So what would you tell somebody that is going into youth ministry, as maybe the senior pastor has put them in charge of youth ministry as a youth pastor, or they're helping out as like assistant youth leader?
Just 1 second. I've got to type something real quick. So anybody that's going into youth ministry, the biggest thing that I would say is to make sure that your heart's in the right place, that you're doing it for the right reasons, and to pray heavily about it. Because you're taking, like I had said earlier, you're taking a life that may not know everything that they need to know, and you're trying to shape them into being a Christian, and you're trying to help them find their way to Jesus. But if your life's not right and you're not living the way that you're supposed to live, and you can't provide that example for them, that's probably not the calling for you. Just because we feel like we want something sometimes doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best thing for us. And we need to make sure that our lives are right, that we're right with God, that we're doing the right things, that we're praying, that we're studying, and we're not just seeing this as an opportunity for us to go out and have a name or have a title or anything like that, that our heart's right and that our relationship with God is right. Because if we're wrong, we're not going to be able to lead anybody else in the right direction.
Right. And like you said, the youth are the generation of now. They're the upcoming leaders. So if we don't, form their foundation or help them form their foundation right, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, because what will the future church be if the foundation isn't correctly formed?
Right.
What are we going to be leaving behind for the next generation and the generation after that? Because if we put a bad doctrine into these kids, then they're going to continue to put a bad doctrine into more kids as they grow, and before long, the church is just not going to be recognizable.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Jason, I thank you for coming up here on this podcast here. Where can people find you on social media?
So I've got so many different ways to be found. Of course, I'm on Facebook, just under my first and last name, and then I'm on TikTok, and it's also my first and last name without a space, which is just Jason Hepler. And then from TikTok, you can find me on Instagram. And then our church is Mercy Temple. It's on Facebook. We do Right now, we're live streaming all of our services. We're doing live devotionals. Currently, I'm doing Thursday evening devotionals, and like I had said earlier this week, I'm going to be on the 10 Virgins, and next week I'm actually going to be looking at the prodigal son, which I think is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, because it tells us, it shows us just what God's love, grace, and mercy can do. But instead of just looking at him, I want to look at the brother too that was not willing to accept him when he came back, because we see that in a lot of churches when people start to stray or stumble away from God, and they realize that they've become lost and broken and they need to come back to church. You always have those certain members that are like, well, what are they doing here? Or why are they coming back? So I want to break that down and talk about why that brother being included in the story was important. But you can find me there, and you can find me on TikTok or on Facebook. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Yeah, I mean, that was great information and great insight. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please check out aheartforyouth.org and like A Heart for Youth on Facebook. Have a blessed day.